Hello, this is question 5 from June 2020, paper 1-2 put on by Cambridge International Education. In the description below you'll find a link to an image of this question, so please try it before looking at my solution. This question is all about functions. They write the question, they write part of the information like this. This confuses a lot of students, so I'm going to rewrite this. First let me read it for you. It just says the function f such that x is mapped to a minus 2x. This is very similar, identical for all purposes. Function of f(x) is equal to a minus 2x. Same thing, so don't be too scared by this. Now the question asks us to find f of x and the inverse of x. Just to remind everyone, this is the same as this. So that means whatever's inside this bracket, we get a minus 2x of it. So what's inside this bracket is, let's see. So what's inside this bracket is a minus 2fx. Sorry, this is ff here, by the way, ffx. And we still have another fx. So this is still equal to a minus 2, well, we don't need it inside the bracket this time, a minus 2x. And if we clean that up, we get a minus 2a plus 4x. So we get, let's see, 4x minus x. Now to do the second question, the inverse of x is a little trickier, but it is something hopefully you've all learned at this point. There's a couple of ways to find the inverse. How I like to do it, let me write this out again. We write fx equals a minus 2x. First thing, instead of fx, this is common through all of maths, you've used it without knowing probably, we often just replace it with y. That's just because when we're doing algebra, moving things around, y is easier to write than fx. It's just a placeholder for it. Okay, so y equals a minus 2x. Now the inverse, instead of putting x in and getting y out, what an inverse is it's opposite of the question. So for example, if I put 2 in, x is equal 2, and I got 9 out, y is equal to 9. The inverse is, what happens, the inverse is if a function that where we put 9 in, we get 2 out. Or this works for every time. So in this case we put x in and we get y out. The inverse is if we put y in and get x out. So we're just going to switch these two letters around. And this would be the inverse function now. Except it doesn't look pretty. We don't have this on its own. This guy is now y. Because again, we just replaced it with it. I could have wrote all of this with fx here, but sorry, not here now. As soon as I did the switch thing, instead of being fx, actually let me do it with just fx. Yeah, let me rub this out here. Okay, so this, if I replace these, x becomes here equals a minus 2, and instead of x, I'm going to put fx. But the act of switching them, around there has now made this an inverse. And that's it. We just need to get this on its own now. Okay, so let's rearrange these. We get x minus a is equal minus 2 inverse x. You can see why we write y. It's much shorter and easier. Let's see, divide this by minus 2 and let's flip them around as well. The inverse of x is equal to x minus a over minus 2. Or we don't like having minuses in the bottom row, so let's change that to a minus x over 2. Multiplied every one by a minus. By a minus, a by a minus, x by a minus, and a 2 by a minus. Okay, so that's our inverse, and that is the answer to part A. And so part B is very related. It says, given that f of x is equal to the inverse, find x in terms of a. Well, if this equals this, we can also say 4x minus a, which is the same as f of x, must equal the inverse. Or, instead of the inverse, let's write a minus x over 2. So as they just asked us to find x in terms of a, all we need to get is x equals. So let's rearrange this. Let's play around with this. Multiply everything by 2. We'll get 8x minus 2a equals a minus x. Let's get all the x's on the left. We'll get, add an x on, we'll get 9x. All the a's on the right, we'll add 2a on, we'll get 3a. So that's x is equal 3a over 9, or x is equal, these cancel partially, a over 3. So a over 3, or x is equal 1 over 3a, if you'd rather. This is fine though. Okay, so I think that answers all of that question. Fairly straightforward, but lots of students would have got it wrong because they're too confused by the starting of it. They don't understand what ffx meant, or they don't know how to get the inverse. But it's actually quite straightforward, and it's very similar, and it's asked on most exams, so it is worth learning. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.